Spencer Durger, and at a time we probably have learned the good and the bad about our world, especially serial killers. And they're not good people and people we don't want to be around. But the scary thing is that they could be all around us even if we don't know where they are, who they really are, and they could be targeting the next victim even if we can't tell. And one of the people, well-known serial killer, is Robert Hansen, and that might sound like a good thing, but not really. He's a serial killer, and he was one of those people. And you might have heard of him before because he was born and raised in Iowa. And he grew up as a scrawny little boy with a stutter. He was picked on in school, and people ignored him. Nobody wanted to be his friend because of that. And that's probably what led him to his fateful future as time went on. But although of his horrific history, Robert wasn't the person he is known for today. And I'm sure some of you have heard about Robert Hansen because he's born and raised in Estherville, Iowa. And it's kind of crazy to think about this, that from someone from a sweet state of Iowa could turn to be such a violent serial killer. But let's look into his past, somewhere where the beginning is never really how it should end. Let's explain a little bit. He was born and raised in Estherville, Iowa, and he worked with his father as a baker and kind of followed his footsteps. He kind of seemed like he wanted to do that for himself. But as time went on, he kind of just turned a little bit because during school, like I said, he was picked on. Nobody liked him. He had a stutter, and at one time he explained himself as being one giant pimple, something nobody likes. Well, one thing that got explained in one of my sources from L History is that he got shunned by girls, which kind of assumed his future of going to kill and rape specifically girls and not just everybody. But before that, he wanted to join the Army Reserves because before he wanted to go and hunt in refuge by himself, kind of a tease to what he was going to do in the future. But when he turned 18, he joined the Army Reserves and became an assistant drill sergeant as time went on during his Army career, which is really awesome. He's really turning his life around. He wanted to do something different, which he did. He was married during this time as a drill instructor, but then divorced because he burned down a school bus yard. Yes, you heard me right, a bus yard. But then after that, he got in trouble, but then he moved to Anchorage, Alaska, and that's from my source Serena, allthat'sinteresting.com. And he had 2 kids and a wife once again, and he was well liked by his neighbors. His life seemed like it was going great because he wanted to change something that because of his young past that he didn't like. Well, his wife that he had was named Cindy Paulson, and on June 13th of 1983, she was found running, handcuffed, and escaped from Robert Hansen. He lived out in this cabin in the middle of the woods, which is really nice, enjoy the outdoors, have a good time. But for him, it was a different story. Not soon after, Robert was found and taken in for questioning, and Cindy mentioned that about his cabin, and troops went in to investigate, which here's where it really gets gross. Several more bodies were found on site, and a few of them were found by construction workers. That was from L History, one of my sources, and also Serena, allthat'sinteresting.com. And Robert denied all the accusations after that. He ignored all of them. He said that he didn't do it, he didn't know where those came from. But then he was imprisoned after that, and his total kill count for Robert Hansen was 17 women for a 12-year time span, and he also confessed to raping 30 other women. That's from New York Times Press, the newspaper online. And for his imprisonment, he was charged with assault, kidnapping, and multiple weapon offenses. And he claimed guilty for the charges the police had evidence for. And the police, so Robert had this map, an aviation map, so to speak, where he pinpointed different locations to where his victims were at, buried, killed, or possibly still alive. So they all went to them, and there were 12 more bodies found, which all happened to be dead. And he was sentenced to prison by jury for 461 years of prison and possibly even more. That was from L History, one of my sources. And he later died at the age of 75 in an Alaska prison from many transfers he had, and that was from New York Times Press. And Robert Hansen, during his childhood, it was going great, except for the fact that he got picked on in school. He kind of self-closed himself into going out by himself, going hunting, and kind of taking refuge, not think about what was going on. He got shunned by everybody. Nobody liked him. He called himself a pimple, which then led to his path as a serial killer. But even though he tried to turn his life around, joining the army, becoming an assistant drill sergeant, getting a wife, and remarrying again, got kids, that didn't work out for him as well. 461 years in jail, that's no good, and 20 plus kills. That's not good at all. Robert Hansen, it's kind of crazy to think that someone from the sweet state of Iowa could ever turn to be such a violent serial killer. And his past, well, it's something that really was misjudged. And we all, at one time, have probably heard the name Robert Hansen. Well, if it rings a bell, I just explained it to you. He was originally from Iowa, Estherville, Iowa, moved to Alaska, and is a world-renowned serial killer. And Robert Hansen was known for his time, and I'm sure he will be known for everything he has done in his time for as of today. Thank you.